She called the cops on my golden retriever, a dog so old he wheezes when he wags his tail. That was how my Monday started, with a 911 dispatch about a dangerous animal in progress at my own house. Not a break-in, not a fire, my dog, Rusty, age 8 going on 80, couldn't jump on the couch without a boost, but apparently he'd suddenly turned into Cujo with arthritis. I nearly spilled my coffee when the call came through. It was 7:47 a.m. and my 12-year-old daughter Grace was home alone with him. The woman who made the call? Connie Halverson, HOA president of Sadewood and self-appointed sheriff of Shrubs and Siding. What she didn't know was that I wasn't downtown like my usual patrol route. I'd swapped shifts with Marcus Pena so he could take his kid to the dentist. That meant I was 2 blocks away, in uniform, in a cruiser, and about to become the surprise ending to the script she thought she had written. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're tuning in from. If you like your stories with twists sharper than a HOA president's haircut and justice served with a side of petty revenge, go ahead and tap that subscribe button. Tomorrow's tale? Even messier, even juicier, and trust me, what's coming next? You won't believe who ends up in handcuffs. Connie had been circling our family like a buzzard ever since I arrested her son Jed for a DUI last spring. She blamed me for his fall from Ivy League hopeful to community college night student, and ever since then she'd made it her mission to make our lives miserable, one HOA citation at a time. First, it was our mailbox being non-compliant, then it was the excessive natural shade from our elm tree, and now, Rusty. This wasn't about a dog. This was about control, payback, and the kind of petty power that turns bored suburbanites into warlords with bylaws. She thought I was at least 20 minutes away. She thought she had time to scare my daughter, file a report, and paint herself as the victim, but the clock didn't play along. At 7:50, I pulled up in full uniform, and the look on her face, priceless. Her mouth opened like she was about to recite the Pledge of Allegiance backwards. There were already 2 officers on scene when I arrived, one rookie with a clipboard and the other looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. Connie stood at the front gate like a scarecrow in slacks, pointing at Grace and shouting about imminent danger. Grace, bless her, was kneeling beside Rusty, who was flat on his side, snoring like a lawnmower with asthma. "That beast lunged at me," Connie shrieked, waving her iPad like she was swatting flies. "I have video proof." The rookie glanced at Rusty. "Ma'am, the dog appears to be unconscious." I stepped out, my badge catching the morning sun, and walked up slow. This wasn't just me showing up. This was the reckoning she didn't see coming. "Officer Barrett, responding to a 911 call," I said, loud enough for every neighbor within 100 feet. "What's the emergency?" Connie blinked twice. "You're supposed to be downtown." "Schedule change," I said with a smile. "Now tell me about this alleged attack." Grace ran up and threw her arms around me. "Dad," she said, "Rusty bit her, but he hasn't even moved." Behind her, Rusty lifted his head, yawned with the drama of a Shakespearean actor, and laid back down with a sigh like he'd just finished. I turned back to Connie, who was now holding her iPad like it was a holy relic. "This dog violated HOA safety standards," she barked. "Section 9B, no dangerous breeds." I pulled out my phone. There is no Section 9B, and even if there were, HOA rules require a board vote and 30 days' notice. Connie's lips tightened like she'd suck a lemon. "That's not relevant." He looked at me aggressively. "Has cataracts," I replied. He couldn't look at a brick wall and know what color it was. Just then, Sylvia Ford, our 65-year-old neighbor and proud documentarian of all neighborhood drama, strolled up with her phone. "Been recording since 5 a.m., she chirped. Helps with memory at my age. Sylvia had footage of Connie pacing near our gate earlier, practicing what to say on the 911 call. "Use the phrase, 'Officer needs assistance,'" she said in the clip. "That'll make him come fast and catch him in uniform." Connie's face turned a shade of red, usually reserved for fire trucks and temper tantrums. She whispered through gritted teeth, "You ruined my son's life. This is just the beginning." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. because Rusty, God bless him, chose that moment to let out a long, loud snore that sounded like a sigh from the heavens. That was the moment I realized Connie didn't just want to ruin our day. She wanted us out. This wasn't a personal spat anymore. It was a campaign, and we'd just seen the opening salvo. But what she hadn't accounted for was that I wasn't just some grieving widower fumbling through life. I was Officer Eli Barrett, and I'd been in worse scrapes with less backup. My daughter had already lost her mother. She wasn't about to lose her home, her dog, or her peace of mind to a woman with a clipboard and a vendetta. Connie had picked the wrong dog to declare war on, and the wrong badge to try and frame. What she thought would be a clean little takedown turned into a 4-minute lesson in how quickly justice can roll up your driveway. I looked at Grace, standing there beside Rusty, and knew one thing for sure. It was just the start of the unraveling. I wish I were kidding when I say this, but Connie Halverson, retired dental hygienist and part-time tyrant, looked 2 uniformed officers in the eye and accused my daughter's golden retriever of hostile yawning. I'd just arrived, in full uniform, responding to her 911 call about a vicious animal, only to find Rusty half buried in grass, snoring like a tired old lawnmower. Grace, my 12-year-old, was sitting next to him in tears, and Connie was pacing like a prosecutor prepping for a televised trial. She pointed to Rusty's slow, arthritic breathing and declared, "See? That's not normal. That's aggression." One of the rookies blinked, looked at the dog, looked at me, and said, "Sir? The dog's literally asleep." I nodded. That's pretty much his full-time job. And yet, Connie stood firm, convinced she'd just survived a brush with death by now. The iPad in her hand became her weapon of choice. "I have documentation," she barked, holding it up like it was carved on stone tablets. "Section 9B, no aggressive breeds or behaviors." I raised an eyebrow. "That rule doesn't exist, Connie. I helped write the bylaws. You'd have better luck quoting the Constitution backwards." She scoffed and tapped her screen like it owed her rent. That's when Marcus, my partner, pulled up, stepping out of his cruiser with a knowing smirk. "Morning, folks. I heard the report. That the killer?" he asked, nodding toward Rusty, who chose that exact moment to sneeze and then fall back asleep mid-sigh. Connie turned to Marcus, like reinforcements had arrived. "For her. Officer Rodriguez, this is serious. That animal has shown threatening posture." Marcus tilted his head. "Define threatening posture." She paused, dead serious. He breathed at me. Intensely. At this point, I half expected her to pull out a stethoscope and start diagnosing conditions like premeditated panting. If absurdity were a sport, Connie was already in the playoffs. Before anyone could stop her, she jammed the iPad into Marcus's hands. "Here, read it. This is the HOA's emergency update to dangerous animal policy." Marcus, ever the gentleman, scrolled for maybe 5 seconds before he said, Connie, this document says last edited 6:47 a.m. today." Dead silence. Even the birds paused. Her face went through 4 shades of red, settling somewhere between cherry and lawsuit. "Those are the revised regulations," she huffed, voice cracking. "We have to be able to act quickly in times of danger." "So you rewrote neighborhood law over coffee this morning?" I said. "Do you also print your own money?" The 2 rookie officers exchanged glances like they were waiting for adult supervision. If there was a moment Connie's credibility sprained its ankle and fell flat on its face, that was it. But what happened next made it worse, because that's when Sylvia entered the chat. Sylvia Ford, 70 and spry, had wandered over in a pink housecoat and orthopedic sandals, holding her iPhone like a journalist at a press conference. "I've got the whole thing," she announced brightly. "Started filming at 5:00 a.m. to keep my brain sharp. You want the footage?" Connie spun toward her like Dracula spotting garlic. "That's illegal. You can't film me." Sylvia just grinned. "Sidewalk's public, dear, and so is yelling threats at a sleeping dog." She tapped her screen, and out came Connie's rehearsal tapes. Full audio. "I need to say officer needs assistance," Connie had muttered into her phone that morning. "That'll make Eli come in uniform, then I get him violating department policy on camera." Marcus looked at me. "She knew your schedule?" I nodded grimly. She knew everything, except I wasn't downtown today. Connie's whole plot, crafted with the elegance of a middle school group project, was crumbling in broad daylight, and every neighbor now had front row seats. That's when Connie's tone changed. She dropped the shrill outrage and lowered her voice to something more venomous. "You have no idea what you've started, Barrett. You think this ends with your dog?" I stepped forward, slow and steady, just enough to let the badge gleam under the sun. "That depends," I said. "You planning to accuse anyone else of aggressive yawning?" She didn't flinch. "You ruined my son's life. This is just the opening act." But as she turned to leave, I noticed something odd. Her phone, half hidden under her sleeve, was recording. Red light blinking. She was filming every second of our conversation, not for protection, for leverage. That red light wasn't about safety. It was insurance. She knew the rules better than most lawyers. She wasn't just harassing us. She was building a trap. But the question was, for what? And more importantly, who else was she trying to corner next? And just like that, what started as a ridiculous call about a snoring dog had morphed into something darker. Connie had a plan, a script, an agenda, and now I had two jobs: protect my daughter and figure out why this woman was recording our lives like it was an audition tape for court TV. Something told me the HOA drama wasn't the disease, it was the symptom, and the infection was spread. I thought the worst was over when Connie accused our dog of attempted homicide by breathing, but then the grass turned black. It started with Grace screaming from the yard at dawn. "Dad, the lawn's dead, and Rusty won't eat." The words hit like a defibrillator to my morning. I ran outside, barefoot and half awake, to find a perfect square of scorched earth around Rusty's favorite nap spot. He was lying on his side, panting slow, gums. It wasn't just a patch of dead grass. In the center, where the sun hadn't even touched yet, was a faint but unmistakable skull and crossbones. It wasn't lawn care. It was chemical warfare on a leash. The HOA hadn't just gone passive-aggressive. It had gone full biohazard. And someone wanted us to get the message loud and early. Grace and I raced Rusty to the emergency vet, me gripping the steering wheel like I could squeeze answers out of it. The vet didn't mince words. "Possible poisoning, banned pesticide, we'll run tests immediately." While we waited, Grace curled up in a corner of the lobby, holding Rusty's collar like it was her mother's necklace. And, in a way, it was. Sarah had picked that collar out herself the day she brought Rusty home, back when Grace still wore pigtails and thought grilled cheese was gourmet cuisine. I watched my daughter rock back and forth, whispering, "You're all I have left of her," and felt the kind of helpless rage that doesn't burn. It simmers. Whoever did this didn't just go after a pet. They reached into my daughter's heart and tried to punch a hole in the only thing holding it together. 2 hours later, the vet returned with results grim enough to wrinkle paint. "He ingested a pesticide banned since 2019, she said. "He's stable, but this was no accident." I nodded, jaw tight. "Can you document that, legally?" She handed me a report thicker than a Bible. "Absolutely, and Officer Barrett, this was calculated. Someone wanted him sick, not dead, not yet." That "not yet" stuck with me all the way home. Grace had fallen asleep in the back seat, still holding Rusty's collar while I mentally rewound every detail of Connie's threat. She said this was just the beginning. And now I was starting to believe her. When we got back, Grace found something in the trash near the gate. A soggy notebook, half torn, half soaked. "Dad," she said, holding it out, "this has her handwriting. The first page, Day 1, call 911 during patrol shift change. Day 4, chemical treatment via JED. Day 14, force vote. Day 21, offer lowball price on ranch." My fingers went numb. It wasn't paranoia. It was a blueprint. I flipped through the pages, each one more damning than the last. Budget estimates, payout schedules, lists of target homes, HOA weaponization in fine print. This wasn't some suburban grudge. This was real estate espionage with a yoga mat. Connie wasn't just after me, she was clearing space for something. A development, a land grab, and we were just the first domino. That's when Sylvia, God bless her, texted me, "You need to see my footage from 5 o'clock IM again." We zoomed in this time, the grainy outline of a van pulling up to our fence. Out steps a man. Connie meets him, hands him something, cash, the van's logo, Greenthorn Pest Solutions. The man? Jed Brennan, her brother-in-law. The same guy I once booked for spraying illegal termite fog in a school gymnasium. "Barrett," Sylvia whispered over the phone, "she's poisoning property values one dog at a time." Suddenly it all clicked. The HOA wasn't broken, it was for sale. That night I sat on the porch, watching Grace sleep through the window and Rusty finally resting easier. I had 21 days until she made her move on our home. 21 days to unravel a conspiracy built on HOA letterhead and backyard chemicals. I stared at the lawn, at the blackened grass still shaped like a warning label, and I realized something chilling. If she'd done this to us, she'd done it before, and if she wasn't stopped, she'd do it again. The question now wasn't if we were at war. The question was how many other families had already lost, without knowing who poisoned their roots. If this story hit home, if you've ever seen quiet cruelty hide behind a clipboard, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe, because what happens next? Let's just say Rusty was only the first warning shot. In every neighborhood war, someone always underestimates the quiet ones. Connie did. Now, I've got a notebook, a confession, and a daughter who takes better notes than the FBI. Next time, we follow the money. And trust me, it leads somewhere rotten. If you've never seen a golden retriever yawn on a 10-foot screen while being labeled a domestic threat, let me introduce you to Tuesday night's HOA meeting. Connie rented out the community center like it was the Pentagon, brewed a pot of decaf that tasted like betrayal, and strutted in wearing a pantsuit 3 shades angrier than her mood. "We are at war with negligence," she opened, with the fervor of someone who just read half a psychology article and declared herself sane. First slide, a zoomed-in frame of Rusty's sagging jowls mid-yawn. "This," she barked, "is what threatens Crestwood." You could hear a fly yawn in the back row. Then she pointed to Grace and asked if her dog had ever snarled in a tone that could be interpreted as hostile yawning. That's where we were now. I should have left when the coffee started whispering, "Get out." Connie clicked to the next slide, an off-brand infographic titled "Behavioral Triggers of Canine Violence," featuring a Doberman wearing sunglasses. Rusty is a retriever with arthritis, but that didn't stop her. She showed blurry screenshots of him lying in our yard like he was casing the joint. "Observe the stance," she said, circling his curled-up paws with a laser pointer. "Predatory posture." A man in the back whispered, "Isn't he sleeping?" She ignored it and jumped into stats from an online forum about aggressive breeds, all while ignoring the fact that she once described Rusty as a mood board for naps. I should have walked out when she introduced her slideshow with background music. Yes, music. Some instrumental track called Urban Emergency. Grace stood up, my 12-year-old. Her voice didn't shake. "That's a yawn," she said, calmly pointing at the image. "He always yawns when he wakes up. He's 8 years old and can't even chase a tennis ball." Connie waved her off like she was swatting a gnat. "Children are emotional bystanders," she said, before pulling out a legal-looking document with all the confidence of a magician revealing a rabbit. "New HOA rule, no dogs over 50 pounds. You could feel the room lean back like a wave. Half the crowd owned Labradors, Golden Doodles, Huskies, or in Reverend Thompson's case, a Saint Bernard that once played the angel in our live nativity. "Wait," Connie sniffed, "is a predictor of temperament." I heard someone mutter, "So is bad judgment," but she kept rolling. Like a freight train on fire and heading straight for a ravine, she couldn't stop herself. Then Sylvia, God bless Sylvia, stood up in her floral housecoat like she'd been waiting for her cue. "Since we're sharing footage," she said cheerfully, "how about mine?" Connie paused. For the first time all night, she looked worried. Sylvia connected her phone to the projector. The lights dimmed. Up popped 5 a.m. footage of Connie, hair up, hoodie on, meeting Jed Brennan in front of our house. They shook hands. He accepted cash. She pointed at our lawn, clear as daylight. The room went from bored to boiling. People turned to each other. She was parked outside our house too. She offered to help us prep for resale. I looked around and saw fear. Real fear. In the eyes of neighbors who thought they were next. Connie tried to recover. "That's taken out of context," she said. "Jed was giving me a quote on mosquito control." Someone laughed. Then someone else. Then everyone. But the real unraveling came when someone asked when her document banning large dogs had been created. "These new rules were drafted last week," she said with a smug little smile. Sylvia raised her hand. "Then why," she said slowly, "does your Word doc say last edited today at 6:47 AE? She zoomed in on the timestamp. Connie turned crimson, then pale, then back to crimson like a malfunctioning traffic light. "That's irrelevant," she barked. "Emergency policies require flexibility." "And a board vote," I added, holding up the actual bylaws, "which didn't happen." She snatched her gavel and slammed it down. "I'm calling for an immediate vote anyway. Rusty must be removed within 24 hours or face escalating daily fines of $500, 0 cents. People shouted. One woman yelled, "You're drunk on power," in a radio interview. Another, "You're not even the real president." And Connie? She smiled like a villain at the end of a bad soap opera and said, "You'll thank me when your toddler doesn't get mauled by someone else's nostalgia." At that point, Reverend Thompson stood up. "Motion to delay all voting until a legal audit is conducted." Seconded. Passed. The meeting dissolved into chaos. Connie banged her gavel 3 more times, like that would summon order from thin air. It didn't. She packed up her laptop like she hadn't just declared war on half the zip code, but I could see it in her eyes. The fight wasn't over. She wasn't retreating. She was reloading. And as people huddled in whispers, swapping stories about fines for mismatched curtains or outlawed mailbox flags, I realized Connie hadn't just lost the room. She'd set fire to her own throne. What we didn't know yet? She still had one more grenade in her purse, and she planned to hurl it straight at my badge. If this story made you laugh, shake your head, or think twice about what neighborhood power really means, send it to a friend who's been on the wrong side of a clipboard. We all know someone who's dealt with a Connie in disguise. Leave a comment and let me know how you'd handle a dog trial in a PowerPoint courtroom. Because next time, Connie doesn't just lose a vote, she goes after my badge. And what she didn't count on was that I'd been documenting everything, too. Ever been sued by the same person who tried to poison your dog, gaslight your daughter, and rewrite HOA laws like she was drafting the Constitution with a Sharpie? Welcome to my Tuesday morning. There I was, civil court, badge polished, tie knotted, watching Connie Whitmore sit smug at the plaintiff's table with her new lawyer, some Beverly Hills rent-a-suit who smelled like eucalyptus and delusion. They were suing me for harassment, defamation, and emotional trauma related to canine intimidation. That's right. After all she pulled, she decided to claim Rusty had caused her ongoing psychological distress. I half expected her to roll in with a neck brace and therapy goat. But what she didn't know? I wasn't there just to defend myself. I came to turn that courtroom into a truth trap. And Connie had already stepped in the bait. Her lawyer strutted up like he was auditioning for Law and Order. Gated community. "Your Honor," he began, "my client has endured systemic abuse at the hands of Officer Eli Morrison, who used his position to publicly humiliate her, encouraging neighbors to mock and exclude her from the community she's worked tirelessly to uphold." The judge, Ellery Frank, raised one eyebrow like a gavel with attitude. "Does she have evidence of these claims?" "We have testimony," the lawyer said, "and a medical note verifying emotional harm caused by the defendant's dog. That note was printed on a Word template, no doctor's signature, and dated 2 days after Sylvia's footage aired at the HOA meeting. You could smell the panic perfume Connie was sweating under that designer scarf, and yet they pressed on, unaware they were about to run headfirst into every receipt I'd brought in my folder like a samurai sword disguised in manila. When it was my turn, I stood up calmly, nodded to the judge, and said, with the court's permission, I'd like to enter 5 exhibits into evidence. First, the vet report confirming Rusty had ingested a banned pesticide, one that hadn't been legal in California since 2019. Intentional exposure, the vet's note read. Concentration designed to cause illness, not death. Second, HOA bylaws, which clearly stated any new pet policy required a 2/3 board vote and 30 days' notice, neither of which ever happened. Connie rolled her eyes like legal process was just a suggestion. Third, Sylvia's footage from 5 a.m., Connie handing an envelope to Jed Brennan, her brother-in-law, right at the property line. I paused the clip, right as she pointed at our lawn like she was ordering an airstrike. The courtroom was dead silent, except for Connie's lawyer flipping through papers like they might start magically rewriting themselves. Fourth, I said, a signed affidavit from Mr. Brennan. I turned and gestured. Tom stood at the back, nervous but resolute. He admits he was paid by Mrs. Whitmore to treat my lawn and Rusty's favorite sleeping spot using a chemical his company was barred from purchasing after losing its license. Connie shifted in her seat like the floor had suddenly gone warm. Judge Frank scanned the signed statement. Interesting, he muttered. Very thorough handwriting. I smiled, then went in for the finish. Lastly, Your Honor, a witness who can shed light on the so-called expert evaluation of Rusty that Mrs. Whitmore submitted last week. The doors creaked open. In walked Troy Langford, Connie's nephew, also known as Dr. Peterson, the dog behaviorist with suspiciously good teeth and a tendency to say things like aggressive napping. Still in his toothpaste-submergent tan suit. Mr. Langford, the judge said, are you, or have you ever been, a licensed animal behaviorist? Troy gulped. No, Your Honor. I'm an actor. I was paid to pretend. You could have heard Connie's brain crack from the gallery. She promised me $5,000 0 cents and a role in a dog food commercial, he added, suddenly embracing his inner whistleblower. The judge leaned back, hands steepled. Joe, to summarize, the plaintiff fabricated a dog attack, edited HOA rules, bribed her brother-in-law to use illegal chemicals, hired a fake expert to validate her claims, and is now accusing the defendant of harassment after orchestrating a campaign of personal sabotage? He looked at Connie like she was a taxidermy project that had gone terribly wrong. Case dismissed, with prejudice, and I'll be referring this to the district attorney for further review, possibly conspiracy, extortion, and fraud. Connie stood up, pointed at me, and shrieked, "This isn't over!" But before she could do her grand exit, the judge added, "And Mrs. Whitmore, if you open your mouth again in my courtroom, I'll make sure your next HOA meeting happens over Zoom from a holding cell." I walked out of that courthouse to the sound of my daughter cheering across the parking lot. But I wasn't celebrating just yet, because when someone like Connie says, "This isn't over," you'd better believe she's got one more trick up her overpriced cardigan sleeve. And sure enough, when I checked my phone, there it was. A message from Internal Affairs. Anonymous complaint. Misuse of uniform. Video footage pending review. She'd planted one last landmine, and the fuse was already lit. You'd think losing a court case, being exposed in front of half the neighborhood, and nearly being tackled by her own nephew's confession would have made Connie finally take the loss. But not Connie. No, she decided to play her final card from the comfort of her holding cell, filing an official complaint with Internal Affairs. Her claim? That I misused department resources by responding to my own residents in uniform. She even attached a video, recorded on her hidden phone, showing me pulling up in a cruiser that Monday morning. No context, just enough bait to trigger a review. Internal Affairs summoned me like I was a rookie who'd crashed a squad car into a donut truck. 4 minutes to explain everything, or I'd be suspended pending investigation. 4 minutes. Same number of minutes it took me to save my daughter that morning. Life's poetic like that. Until it isn't. I showed up early, boots shined, badge straight, nerves humming under my skin. Captain Felton sat at the head of the table, stoic as a stone statue with an attitude. Beside him, Connie, suited up again, ankle monitor peeking under her pants like a dishonorable accessory, smirking like the devil on her best day. Her lawyer played the footage. This is Officer Morrison arriving at his private residence in uniform during scheduled patrol hours, he said, smug as a gas station tuna sandwich. I waited. Captain Felton nodded. You've got 4 minutes. That's when I played our ace. Captain, I'd like to submit a 911 call recording from the morning in question, I said. Connie's face twitched. The playback started, her voice shrill and panicked. There's a dangerous animal attacking people. Officer assistance needed. The dispatcher confused. Ma'am, what officer? Connie, fumbling. Officer needs assistance. Just send help. Felton paused the audio. She said officer needs assistance. His tone shifted from bored to boiling. That's an internal priority code. It triggers immediate response from any nearby unit. I nodded, which I was. Due to a route swap with Officer Daniels that wasn't logged in yet, I was 2 blocks away. Then I dropped the real grenade. And here's the doorbell footage from Sylvia Ortega, time-stamped 1 hour before the call. It shows Mrs. Whitmore rehearsing exactly what to say to trigger a code response. The video rolled, Connie's voice, clear as guilt, whispering into her phone. Officer needs assistance. That'll bring him running. Then I'll have him on tape misusing his uniform. Just need about 20 minutes to scare the kid. Silence. Her lawyer slumped like his chair had deflated. Captain Felton leaned back slowly. So, you weren't abusing power. You were responding to an emergency fraudulently staged by the complainant? And just like that, the last rope Connie was clinging to turned into a noose. Felton stood. Mrs. Whitmore, you are hereby under arrest for filing a false emergency report, abuse of law enforcement protocol, and attempting to manipulate official records. Your actions triggered a federal response code under false pretenses. That's felony territory. Her face drained. This is a witch hunt, she screamed as officers cuffed her again. And destroyed my son's future. No, I said calmly. Bradley destroyed that all on his own with a DUI and an attitude problem. As they dragged her out for the second and final time, even the bailiff looked relieved. And just like that, the book slammed shut. No appeals, no community votes. Just cold steel hard time and a room full of people who finally saw the truth. But the part that stuck with me? Connie had the playbook, the money, and the timing. What she never had was a soul that could be trusted. That weekend, Crestwood Heights threw the kind of barbecue you'd normally reserve for 4th of July. Super Bowl Sunday and a meteor that just missed Earth. Kids ran wild, dogs barked with 0 HOA fines, and Sylvia showed off her new laminated neighborhood watch captain badge like it was the Nobel Prize. Red, yes, the fake vet actor, showed up with a cake that read, "Sorry I tried to get your dog euthanized." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my burger. Grace helped set up lawn chairs and handed out flyers she designed titled, "How to Record HO Abuse Like a Pro." I'd never been prouder. Rusty was there too, tail wagging, muzzle gray, curled up under the picnic table like none of it ever happened. That dog slept through 3 investigations and a felony hearing. Living proof that justice might snore, but it always wakes up on time. We got one more twist before the credits rolled. Sylvia forwarded me an email from her cousin. Turns out Connie's relative, Diana Whitmore, had just moved to Oakdale Estates and was already filing complaints about fence height violations and unregistered dog breeds. Before Diana could even finish her HOA tantrum, Sylvia responded with a screenshot, her HOA certification, a clip of Connie's courtroom meltdown, and a simple note that read, "I'll be there in 4 minutes." Diana withdrew her complaint by sunset. I may wear the badge, but Sylvia's got the power of petty justice wrapped in a floral housecoat. That night, as I tucked Grace into bed, Rusty snoozing at her feet, she looked up and said, "Dad, are we safe now?" I thought about it. Connie was gone, the system worked, and we had a neighborhood again. "Yeah," I said, "we are, but just in case, keep your phone charged. You never know who moves in next door. And that's how a yawn became a federal case. A fake vet got stage fright, and my daughter, 12 years old, taught a whole neighborhood how to stand up to petty tyranny with a phone, a dog, and a little grit. We didn't just save Rusty, we saved each other. From fear, from silence, from thinking no one else would ever speak up. Because this wasn't just about HOA overreach. It was about what happens when regular folks decide enough is enough, when truth outpaces power, when decency claps back. So here's what I learned. Bullies don't need badges, just board positions. But communities don't need heroes, just neighbors who refuse to look away. You don't need a courtroom to stand your ground, just receipts, backbone, and maybe a dog who snores through it all. And if you're facing your own Connie, document everything, trust your gut, and never underestimate the quiet ones, especially if they've got a floral housecoat and a camera. If this story moved you or reminded you of someone who's been through a mess like this, share it with them, send it to a neighbor, a friend, or that one cousin who's currently beefing with his HOA. Leave a comment and tell us how you'd deal with a power-drunk board president. And if you believe every community deserves a little more truth and a little less tyranny, like, subscribe, and stick around, because next time we're taking on a neighborhood where the HOA was the developer and the contracts, let's just say somebody forgot the fine print. You won't want to miss it. Now it's your turn. What HOA horror, small-town scandal, or justice-packed story do you want to hear next? Drop it in the comments. Your ideas might just become the next jaw-dropping episode we bring to life. The wildest stories often start with one simple question: what if this happened to me? If you found this episode valuable, share it with a friend who could use a little courage and maybe a laugh. Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next HOA meltdown, courtroom comeback, or twist you never saw coming. We're building this channel with you, your stories, your curiosity, your voice. So, what do you want us to do next? Comment below.